Most gardeners focus on compost, manure, or mulches when trying to bring life back to tired soil. These approaches certainly work, but many overlook one of the cheapest, most readily available tools sitting just a few aisles away in the grocery store. It doesn't come in a bag of fertilizer, nor is it advertised as a soil amendment. Yet for generations, farmers and homesteaders knew its value. Today, it has quietly slipped out of mainstream gardening practice, even though science backs its ability to wake up soil microbes and attract earthworms quickly. That forgotten item is plain, unsulfured molasses. Within the first week of using it, soils that had been sluggish can show visible microbial activity. Worms surface where there were few before, and plants respond with richer color and stronger growth. The key lies not in the molasses itself, but in how it fuels the microbial food web. Gardeners who rely only on compost or organic matter without recognizing the importance of microbial energy often face slow decomposition and limited fertility. Molasses provides that missing spark. To understand why molasses has such an effect, it helps to step back and consider what microbes need. Soil bacteria and fungi thrive when they have both carbon to build their structures and simple sugars to fuel rapid multiplication. Compost and mulch provide the carbon, but those materials break down slowly, offering very little immediately available energy. That's why decomposition can drag on for months, especially in cooler climates or dry conditions. Molasses, however, is essentially stored sunlight in the form of simple carbohydrates. When diluted and applied to soil, it acts as a direct energy supply for bacteria. Within hours, populations begin to surge. As bacteria multiply, they in turn attract protozoa, nematodes, and higher organisms like earthworms, creating a cascading chain reaction in the soil food web. This isn't about feeding plants directly, it's about jump-starting the life in the soil that makes nutrients continuously available. Another overlooked property of molasses is its mineral profile. Unlike refined sugar, molasses still contains calcium, potassium, magnesium, iron, and trace elements. These minerals not only nourish microbes but also contribute to soil fertility over the long term. The result is a soil that shifts from inert and compacted toward porous, biologically active, and humus-building. The benefits of molasses depend entirely on how it is applied. If it's too concentrated, it can actually lead to sticky residues and even attract pests. On the other hand, if it's too diluted, the effect is, well, pretty weak. Through both traditional practice and modern testing, a standard dilution has emerged, about 1 to 2 tablespoons of molasses per gallon of water. This mixture can be used either as a soil drench or as part of a compost tea. When applied directly to soil, molasses should be watered in thoroughly. The goal here isn't to leave syrup at the surface, but to deliver dissolved sugars into the upper soil layers where microbial life is most active. The results are often seen in just a few days. Soil that was dry and lifeless becomes looser, and a faint, earthy smell returns as microbes produce organic compounds. In compost tea, molasses plays a different but equally important role. Here, it fuels the aerobic bacteria during the brewing process, making sure the finished tea contains a strong microbial load. Gardeners often notice that teas made without molasses produce little foam or activity, while those with it froth vigorously. When applied to garden beds, these teas seed the soil with millions of beneficial organisms, all ready to cycle nutrients. Earthworms respond strongly to soils that have been treated with molasses. The reason is indirect. Worms aren't feeding on the molasses itself, but on the explosion of microbial life it fosters. Fresh microbial biomass is a worm's primary food, and as colonies grow rapidly in response to molasses, worms move in to feed. Over time, this leads to higher worm populations, faster organic matter breakdown, and more worm castings in the soil. Gardeners who track their soil health often find that repeated molasses applications, even just a few times per season, dramatically increase worm presence. In raised beds, where worms sometimes struggle to establish, this can really make the difference between stagnant soil and thriving, self-renewing ecosystems. As effective as molasses can be, there are mistakes that reduce its value or even harm soil life. The most common is overuse. Applying concentrated molasses or applying it too frequently can tip the microbial balance toward anaerobic organisms, which produce foul odors and rob the soil of oxygen. This is why dilution and moderation are essential. Another mistake is using molasses in soils that are waterlogged or poorly drained. In these conditions, added sugars can fuel anaerobic microbes that create toxic byproducts. Molasses works best in soils that have good air exchange and drainage, where aerobic organisms dominate. Finally, it is important to distinguish between unsulfured molasses and the types often used in industrial processing. Only the unsulfured kind is suitable for soil use. Sulfur residues can inhibit microbial growth and undo the very benefits you are trying to achieve. What sets molasses apart from many soil additives is its ability to bridge the gap between short-term microbial stimulation and long-term humus formation. While the sugars are consumed quickly, the microbial biomass created in the process becomes stable organic matter as organisms die and decompose. This is humus in its purest form, complex carbon compounds that improve soil structure, water retention, and nutrient buffering capacity. Gardeners who integrate molasses into their soil management not only see faster microbial activity but also a steady increase in humus levels season after season. This is where the true value lies. Reviving tired soil isn't about applying quick fertilizers, but about setting in motion a cycle of life that continues to enrich itself year after year. Molasses use in soil is definitely not new. In fact, records from both traditional farming communities and mid-20th century organic pioneers mention its role in composting and soil renewal. What changed was the rise of chemical fertilizers, which offered immediate plant growth without reliance on soil biology. As those methods spread, practices like molasses feeding were quietly abandoned. Today, with the renewed understanding of soil microbiology, the value of such traditions becomes clear again. What once seemed like folk wisdom now aligns perfectly with modern science. Feeding microbes first is honestly the surest path to healthy soil and productive gardens. For gardeners who are, really serious about building living soil, the grocery store shelf actually holds one of the simplest tools available. A modest bottle of unsulfured molasses can accomplish what expensive soil amendments just can't. Rapid microbial awakening, increased worm activity, and a steady path toward humus-rich beds. It's definitely not a cure-all, but when you use it alongside compost, mulches, and cover crops, it acts as the spark that brings the entire system to life. The next time your soil feels a bit sluggish, before you reach for more fertilizer, consider giving it what it truly craves: energy for its microbial community. In doing so, you're not only reviving your garden for the present season, but you're also laying the foundation for fertility that will endure for years to come. The overlooked trick of using molasses really shows how easily gardeners can miss powerful, low-cost solutions hidden in plain sight. By reintroducing this forgotten practice, soil can shift from lifeless to thriving in just a matter of days. For those who are serious about building worm-rich, microbe-active, humus-building soil, molasses still remains one of the most valuable tools out there. If this guide has given you, some new insights into feeding your soil the right way, be sure to subscribe to Soil and Plant Doctor for more in-depth resources. Share this with fellow gardeners who are searching for lasting soil fertility, and help revive these time-tested methods for the next generation of growers.